right, we're back again. Thank you for tuning in again to our another episode of Meet My Mississippi Authors and Artists, and we have a treat for you today. I'd like to introduce you to these wonderful authors and artists, but I let them tell you who they are first and where they're from, and then we get rolling with that. So tell us your name, where you're from.
Thank you so much for having me here, Pat. John Cofield from Oxford, Mississippi. With a little side note that we're filming today in New Albany, and my mother grew up here, so I feel like I'm at my second home today.
Wonderful.
But Oxford's my mainstay.
Absolutely, wonderful. So tell us a little bit about you growing up, where you grew up and all that, where you went to high school.
Well, all of it was in Oxford, and we really, my brother and I, we feel like we had the run of the place. Our grandfather had his photography studio just off the square, and then my father had his photography studio and office in the Lyceum building at Ole Miss. So we could just ride our bikes anywhere we wanted, and we could charge candy and Cokes and stuff all over town. And so we just thought we had the run of the place. And my dad, my entire life, my dad would say Oxford, Mississippi is the best kept secret in America.
Okay.
And it got out finally. As anyone who knows is current with the situation now, it's gotten crazy over there. But yeah, we grew up in a Mayberry and just loved every minute of it.
Wonderful. And
fantastic.
You graduated from Oxford?
Yeah, Oxford High School, sure did.
And you put a lot of pictures of Oxford High School and
yes,
school and the graduating classes, and we love that.
And the Lafayette County people get mad at me sometimes, but I've told them, well, send me some pictures.
So that's how we met. I always try to go back to the background of how I meet all these wonderful people. We met on Facebook because I'm always posting about anything and everything Mississippi, and I love William Faulkner. I'm always posting his quotes and trying to find pictures of him in this because he says the most amazing things. So I'm always quoting him, and of course, you being in Oxford, you have all these amazing pictures of Faulkner and background pictures and just everything. So that's how we started just talking back and forth on Facebook.
And I appreciated you too letting me bounce some of my earliest writings off of you.
Yes, that's how we really got.
And seeing what you thought of what I was saying, because I immediately recognized your talent when I got on Facebook and saw you.
Thank you.
And I asked a couple of people about you. I did. I said, now, who is this woman?
Okay.
And I heard nothing but fantastic feedback.
Thank you.
So then I knew I was on the right track.
So that's how we got to be best buddies.
We see each other every single
on Facebook.
day.
That's exactly right. So this is our first time really meeting in person, and this is just, okay, so this is how you would bounce stuff off of me, and you had something to write about something that was going on in Oxford and some different things that were going on. So I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. You were like, is that too much? Is it too hard? Should I take this out? I was like, hey, go for it. You got that on your heart. And that's the main thing. You can't go wrong as an author when you're writing your heart and what you feel. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I've appreciated your help with me since day one. And really, that article that I messaged you about in those days was the first time I ever wrote an article. And,
you said that.
And it took off.
It did.
Next thing I knew, the Clarion Ledger had put it out, and people were contacting me.
Absolutely.
But it all started with your help, and I do appreciate it.
And then years later, with some things that are going on now, you kind of published it out there again for the same exact kind of thing that's going on. And it's just as valid, it's just as poignant as it was then.
I don't know if you've done this. Have you ever looked at writing you did and think, how did I do that?
Exactly.
There are times when I look at writing and go, wow.
Exactly. I do that with my poems all the time because if I don't write it down that time or when I write it at that moment, I tell people I couldn't put a gun to somebody couldn't put a gun to my head and make me be able to write it again.
I messaged you one time and I said, have you ever had such a wonderful idea to write about, and you didn't write it down because it was so good you knew you would remember it, and then you can't remember a thing, and it breaks your heart later on because you know how good it was.
It does. I tell people all the time, I have hundreds of poems, but I have hundreds that were lost.
Yes.
Because I was like, I'll wait till I get home, or I'll wait till later, and it's gone, and I have no clue how to construct it again or how to put it together. So.
Well, and other times I know I've typed out something real quick, and then somehow mistakenly deleted it later on. No, it's just hard sick.
It is. That's why I don't like technology. I'm just like, I write all my stuff still on paper and scraps of paper and all that. I really do. People don't believe it, and they tease me because I was like, don't text me because I don't know how to text.
Well,
I don't know how to remember.
I write stuff at times. In fact, I even write my passwords. I don't know if you do. I write my passwords on the wall above my computer so that I can.
Isn't that funny?
So that I cannot forget them.
So now we're going to get to this jewel. Yeah. Oh my goodness. You started sending me these pictures and saying, tell me what you think about this. And they were kind of like sepia with the back Okay, tell us about the book and how this came about.
Well, the book, I tell people it had two starting points.
Yes.
And I would say that in fact, it started in about 2010 when I found myself, you notice I had my black tennis shoes on today, it's due to type 2 diabetes. And I had a series of small amputations, and I found myself parked at home with my foot propped up. And about that very same time, my brother called to say that someone had called him, let him know that our dad had been posted on Facebook, and people were saying nice things. And
right.
Neither one of us had an account. Like my brother, I thought it was all baby pictures and recipes, you know, and so I didn't think there was anything for me there.
Right.
Well, I went and checked it out, and I got on there, and I soon realized that the old pictures, the black and whites, were drawing all the interest. You know, everybody was like, I had boxes and crates of black and white pictures, and cedar chests full.
Okay, we're going to start. Let's go back because the people don't understand why and how you got all these amazing pictures.
I'll get you there.
Tell us about your dad and your grandfather.
Well, that's what I say.
Yes.
It started, in fact, with me in 2011, but it started in fond memory in 1928 when my grandfather.
He did say 1928, y'all.
Yes, 1928. Well, we have 6 generations of photographers in my family.
Oh, my goodness.
And
that is amazing.
my brother's here with me today. His oldest son has a master's in photography from the University of Illinois, Chicago.
Okay.
And he has just broken out into freelancing, and his first assignment freelancing was to photograph Bill Gates and Warren Buffett.
Oh,
so he flew off to New York City, and we're like, what? But my grandfather was the 3rd generation photographer, and they all lived in Cornell, Georgia.
Yes.
And he had been married for 2 years, and my father was a year old.
Yes.
And he needed to house and feed this child.
Yes.
And
right.
His grandfather was a photographer there locally, and his father and his uncle were photographers in the 2 surrounding towns. He had nowhere to go, but then he heard that a college town in North Mississippi had lost their photographer.
Oh my goodness.
And he got in the car. He didn't like to drive, but he got in the car and rode over here.
And the rest is
history. My brother and I do comment that, thank goodness it wasn't Starkville. We were glad that it was Oxford.
Okay, let's go
I'm sorry.
We're not going to
lost half the audience right there. No, we love Oxford, and we're just so proud. But he reported back to the family that Oxford felt like Cordell. The few people he met were very friendly.
Okay.
So we came over here.
Okay.
And in July 1928, he started Coalfield Studio in Oxford.
Wow.
Faulkner came in right soon thereafter. He had a...
Be still, my heart. Okay, this man's grandfather started just being like the personal photographer of William Faulkner. Okay, y'all.
But you know, people talk about that. They say, you know, that they were personal friends. But there weren't that many men. I mean, Oxford was a smaller town.
Right, right.
But they did meet, and they did become buddies. They were 3 years apart.
Right, okay.
Born in 1897, Faulkner, and Granddad in 1900. And they became buddies just right away. He came in first with a picture that Faulkner had snuck a picture out of his mother's bureau, and he wanted a copy negative made, but he wanted to do it fast and get it back in there before his mother called him. Okay. So that's what happened. And then the next time that Faulkner came in was when Sanctuary hit. He'd written several books.
Right.
And Phil Stone, who was across the street from the photography studio, had his office there. He had promoted Faulkner. His secretaries had typed the original manuscripts, and he had published him, but nothing was selling. Right. Finally, and then came Sanctuary.
Okay.
And Sanctuary took off. And New York started clamoring for publicity photos. And Faulkner hated, you know, he would only go to Granddad because he was his friend.
Exactly.
You know, he could do it that way. And all through the years.
So all the promo shots, all the real photography of Faulkner came from your granddad. All those, you know, just the real public.
Took all the pics from 1928. There were 5 separate portrait settings, and there were several parties at Roanoke, and there were birthday parties. And he called Granddad out several times to photograph him riding his horses and with his horses and stuff.
And he and his wife, and just outside of the house. And I'm like, this is crazy.
But I will say this: there's one. My father was a Matthew Brady class photographer himself, and he had always wanted to take William Faulkner's pictures. Granddad took every one of them.
Right.
up until the very last portrait settings that you'll see.
Really?
And they're the best ones of Faulkner. They're the ones with the silver hair and the silk tie and the tweed jacket and the black. It's the only time I ever seen my father use a solid black background. But he did. And those shots were taken on March 20th, 1962. And Faulkner died 3.5 months later in July.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, so those were the last portraits taken, and those are the signature So one, the stamp was patterned after.
Oh my goodness.
And all the rest of them, Estelle liked that set best. My grandfather and my father were like the same person. They spoke in one-word sentences and nods.
Right.
And so it wasn't surprising that my grandfather's favorite portrait of Faulkner was one Dad took, and
Okay.
Dad's favorite portrait of Faulkner was one Granddad took.
Yes.
So that wasn't surprising.
Oh my goodness, just the history. It's just like, wow, I could just sit there and just pick your brain on all this all the time. It's just
Well,
it's crazy.
I'll tell you a story when we get off the air.
Okay. Well, the people want to know it too. Now, don't be telling stuff from our
I'm
people.
afraid I'd get whooped if I told this. And so
Okay, now we're going to fast forward when you're talking about people on Facebook or talking about this photographer and
Yeah.
things about Faulkner and pictures and now, okay, now let's go from there.
Yeah, it just, Facebook just took off on me. And I realized finally when other Oxford families started sending me their photos,
Pictures.
and they're saying it'll get more coverage on your page than it'll get on mine.
Right, absolutely.
You know, and so when they'd send me the picture of their granddad's country store, that's when I would say, tell me about the store.
Right.
You know, tell me when it opened, tell me the history of it. And then that, again, it's funny how this name keeps coming up, but said, well, Elvis stopped at the store one time. Well, I want to know that.
Yes,
I
we
wanna,
do.
You know, we want to know all
Everybody knows I'm a huge Elvis
and
fan.
he was playing some Jeep joints in North Mississippi and came
All
through
the
there one
time.
afternoon
Isn't that something?
on the way to a gig, you know, and I'm like, great, you know, that's the kind of stuff I wanted to know. And then I got involved with Archives and Special Collections.
Okay,
Ole Miss.
right.
They've got my granddad and dad's photography collection
absolutely.
there.
And you love to see the little stamp in the corner
Yeah,
of the
I
picture.
do.
I love that.
But then
it's
Martin,
official.
the Martin Dane collection was put online.
Okay.
And they had all these pictures, and they didn't know who the people were.
Right,
So
right.
they came to me and started.
Right.
So then we developed a really nice working relationship, and Dr. Jennifer Ford is up there in charge. And I will say, not to slight the university, but you know, we've been tied contractually to Archives for 3 decades. They never really. They were lazy about holding up there. You know, they're not a bunch of accountants up there.
Right,
They're
right.
artistic folks up there. The accounting school's down the road, and so it just things weren't working out. But with Dr. Jennifer Ford in charge up there, everything has been right in.
Okay.
And she is an asset to the university, and I hope she's there until she retires. We
Okay.
need her.
Wonderful.
We need her. But that got me going. Yeah, everybody in town.
So how did you start getting all these pictures together? How did you come up in your mind the look of the book and just amazing?
I will say that I started to
Oh,
learn
my
in the
goodness.
history, when I started doing all this, I learned right away that there are real dividing lines in
Look at
Oxford's
that
history.
picture.
And of these dividing lines, nothing was ever the same after certain things happened. And you can, with every southern town, the Civil War, of course,
Yes.
was a dividing line.
Absolutely.
Oxford was burned, and then we talked, there's records, there's great records about freed slave families who were just walking into town from all directions.
Yes.
And how you might think it had been a confrontational type thing, but it wasn't. The families and the churches all got together and said, "We're going to get food." You know, and they had a new society. They had a new way of living, and so they got in there and they did it.
How were we getting this book together and all the stories that go behind? And you were just talking about how all these stories, the amazing stories.
Well, it started coming together, and I began to think about the dividing lines in Oxford's history. And so
Right.
the second chapter in there is the dividing line that affected my life more than any. As I say, the Civil War, you know, but
Right.
you get up to 1962, and I write the chapters called 6 Months in 62. William Faulkner died on July 6th, and then James Meredith came on September 30th, and then Johnny Vault went undefeated and won the national championship on January 1st. And those three events in those 6 months of 1962 changed Oxford forever. I mean, the Faulkner death brought in international journalists from all over, and it started what we call the pilgrimage of his poets to Roanoke.
Right.
Right now, as we talk,
Absolutely.
they're out there speaking Japanese and French and German and everything else out at Roanoke.
Absolutely.
And they've been coming since the day he died, and they're never going to stop coming. He's a Nobel laureate, and recognized as he is. And then James Meredith, you know, we had the riot, and two people died, and it was a bad time in Ole Miss history, and it brought negative press. But still, once again, the whole nation looked at Oxford.
Right.
And then when John Vault won the national championship, went undefeated, the only undefeated team Ole Miss ever had, and won the national championship, beat Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl on January 1st of 1963. Then that kind of, not that made everything right, but it brought some happiness to Oxford for the first time in a long time. We had been mourning ourselves, and suddenly we had something to cheer about. And Johnny Vault ended up being, you know, the honored patriarch for life,
right.
you know, because of that. But those 6 months, and the football, they always had these sports writers coming in from all over the country. And after that, even bigger name football players knew about Ole Miss. And we didn't just have a bunch of Mississippi boys.
Right.
We started getting other boys from around. And so those 6 months really changed Oxford
Okay.
in a way. And there's another change that came along that people that really changed Oxford. And it was real quiet when it happened. Suddenly they decided that Ole Miss wouldn't play football in Jackson anymore. The State and Ole Miss would both go up there and play all because the big games have been in Jackson because Alabama and LSU would bring a crowd and television money. We needed that. But now we'd added on to the stadiums and we got it, and that just made the Grove explode. Because I used to go to the Grove back when there weren't very many people out there. You pulled in with your car, and all you had was a bucket of KFC and a card table. But we loved it. That was. But now it's turned into such incredible
It's
thing.
a part of Southern culture, not Mississippi culture. It's like the Grove, going to the Grove and all that is
you hear
Southern
people with
culture.
these bucket lists who live in Seattle, Washington, who want to see the Grove
Absolutely.
one time
before they die.
Which is really, it's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah, it just exploded. Suddenly, too, it became popular, when the big games were in Jackson. People in Memphis were our biggest alumni. They didn't own a condo in Jackson, Mississippi. But when Oxford was the focus of everything, and Oxford built that big baseball stadium, too, and we started having big events, then suddenly it was chic to own a condo in Oxford. And that has just blown the town up.
It has.
It has.
So don't be trying to look for a house or a rental house in Oxford right now, because you can't afford that.
The cost of living.
You can't afford it.
The cost of living is tough. But only on the flip side, I have some buddies who grew up and their daddy had some land out in the county.
Okay.
And it was close to the city limits. And now they're very wealthy.
Okay, exactly.
Where they weren't before.
People who are renting out houses and you got a cash cow, So
people down there renting out their condos for $3,000 for a weekend.
Yes, absolutely, and there people can pay.
Rolling in on Friday, leave on Sunday. I got to give you $3,000.
Absolutely. Hey, you got it like that. If you want it, we got it
Oxford
for you.
is a special town.
It is.
It's just got a special feeling, and some people bemoan old Oxford and how we lost our Mayberry. But not really. I tell them, if you want it back, go sit on Square Book's balcony and just watch the traffic go around, or take a Sunday afternoon and go up to the courthouse lawn and sit on the bench with some friends.
Right.
And you'll feel it.
And it is a magical place. It really is. It's a magical place. And my son will be going there in the fall to Ole Miss, and that was his choice where he wanted to go. So I think he's going to absolutely love it.
Hotty toddy.
He's all in.
When I saw online you posted he was going to Ole Miss,
he's all in. He is all into that.
Well, I think he's going to love it.
So tell me your favorite pictures in the book and some of the interesting things some of the most interesting things you found out by some of the history that you've gotten to connect with some of the pictures that people send in.
It's funny, as I did this book, I would run across, and there are a couple of older women who are my mother's friends, and I used them to bounce facts. I would ask them about things because they were there and I wasn't. There's a picture of Archie Manning and Johnny Faulkner there my daddy took. I thought those were the greatest pictures my daddy ever took. I didn't even know who William Faulkner was. I wasn't reading. I was playing football and cheering for Archie Manning. But then as I got older, then I found out, of course, the Faulkner.
So where were all these pictures? They were just in boxes and chests? How did your dad keep them out? How did he
there was a fire in 1986. There was a fire at the Country Village Mall. And Coalfield studio burned. But negatives are born of water. And so a lot of them got sprayed down and got wet, and they were in envelopes, so they did not burn up. And so we were able to save more than people think. And then there was a second generation of all the Faulkner negatives stored down in Jackson at the archives down there. So, although second generation, maybe not quite as crisp, but we still had them.
So whenever you, if people, how do they send you things? Do they just like on Facebook say, "Oh, I've got this interesting thing"? Because people do that with me about Mississippi.
The first couple of times, I was just amazed, And now
he is the foremost authority, people, on Oxford. So you want to know something about Oxford? What happened in Oxford? This is the man right here. I have him in my studio. This is the man. Don't call me. Call this man.
Well, I come by it honest. My grandfather and father just loved it too. So can't help but. So what else would?
And he's all about Oxford. So how did the book come about? How long did it take you to put the book together, get the pictures together?
It took me about 2 years to get it all together. A lot of the pictures just came from all over. And it was just one step at a time. And after I got through with that 6 months of 62, that chapter, I decided I'd just start at Amadale. Amadale is, I think, Oxford's finest old home. When I was a kid, I thought it was a castle. And I just would love, it had a big gate and everything. So I started there and just started working my way to the square. And it was funny, Dad's book was 214 pages. I had to get 214 pages, but brother had to stop me.
Okay.
You know, we just kept going and going. Finally, it's 5 pounds. You can tell.
Oh my goodness, it is a heavy, heavy book. Okay,
it's just packed full of
how many
information.
pages did you finally get in the book?
328.
And how much is this book?
It's $45.
And where can you find it around here locally?
You can get it at Square Books in Oxford, of course. You can also order it online at Coalfield Press.
Okay.
We set up that company, and I mail them. I'm actually the shipping department.
Okay.
I sign them and I mail them all out.
That is absolutely wonderful.
Every morning, I carry them to the post office.
This is a treasure. I'm telling you, for any birthday, any occasion, Christmas. I mean, this is timeless. If you want to know anything about Oxford, somebody who's going to Ole Miss, I mean, any student who's ever been to Ole Miss, graduated from high school in Oxford, oh my goodness.
And I will say that
did it all.
Novel Bookstore in Memphis has them, Reed's in Tupelo has them, and then Lemuria in Jackson, Mississippi.
All of our independent booksellers, you try to support them.
Absolutely.
We really do.
Absolutely.
This is a jewel. So tell us about your website. Just tell us.
Well, just my Facebook page is what it all is about.
Okay.
You know, and it just I thought about getting a different, you know.
But isn't there something on there, Coalfield Press or .com or?
I'm sorry. Coalfieldpress.com
yeah.
Is where you can also purchase the book, and you can put in there how you want it personalized, and I'll sign it any way you want. But
www. And spell it out. So
Cofield press.com.
Okay.
Coalfieldpress.com.
Very good. So give us some of the things that people have said about the book.
Well, I just had a great reaction to it. I was pleased in the beginning when I sent the PDF to Richard Howarth and Curtis Wilkie and a few people, and they just sent back glowing reviews of everything.
Goodness.
And so I knew that I was on the right track.
Okay.
You worry, you know, you absolutely worry.
You do, because it's your baby. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly,
it's your baby.
exactly.
And I tell people.
And you don't want anyone to criticize. You don't,
ever.
You know, you're just.
But you have to get a tough skin, because there will be critics. And the thing we were talking about with the last author is that, hey, find your tribe. The people who really love what you do, and forget all the rest of the people, because there are always going to be other people.
And I'm not sure.
You have to.
I'm not sure how important this is, but I did get a couple messages right as I was getting ready to publish from other authors, and I'm not going to say who. They said, do you realize you're stepping on some Oxford toes?
And
I didn't understand.
Right.
I didn't know
told me about
so what
that.
do you mean?
Yeah,
I'm stepping on toes, and they said, well, they think you're playing on your name or your daddy and granddaddy. You need to have some talent of your own. I said, well,
that is my talent.
I work real hard. I work real hard as a pictorial historian of Oxford.
Hello.
And thanks to the encouragement of Ed Meek, who we've talked about, and others in journalism and around Oxford, they've taught me to be a pretty decent writer. So
and you are a typical example of the story that we want to talk about, and to encourage authors and artists. There are always going to be haters, quote unquote. Always going to be haters for whatever you're going to do. And if you had stopped right at that point and said, oh, I'm stepping on toes and I can't do that, we would not have this amazing history of Oxford. Do you know what I'm saying? And if anybody, like we were talking about Star Wars, it's like they told him that it's not going to work. It's too way out there.
Yeah,
you know?
I've heard that story. I've heard that story. Said it'll never sell.
It'll never sell anywhere for anybody. And really, how you like me now? That's all that's all I can say about that. But we needed that, and there's somebody out there who needed what you had to give, and everybody has a special gift for the world. And your gift, my goodness, God gave you the gift of being born into that family. Oh my goodness.
I'll take it like that. I'm proud. I'll take it like I'm proud to say.
To have a grandfather, who in the world has touched William Faulkner and talked to William Faulkner, just sit there with him smoking this cigar or whatever and been out?
I tell you, there's something that burned up in the fire. There's something that burned up in the fire that I'll never get over losing. It was a cut glass whiskey decanter, cut glass stop in the top of it. It was empty and had a card attached to it. It said, we polished off this fifth on New Year's Eve, 1945, J.R. Cofield and William Faulkner.
Oh my goodness. See, I'm getting chills. I mean, do you know what people would just like? That is like the holy grail of, there are people who come, like you say, it's just like having, going to Egypt or something, or going, they come to Oxford like that to just bow down at the sanctuary of William Faulkner.
Well, they do, and I write in the book too, for years, Roanoke was the only thing that attracted them. They would come in the morning, they would wander around a little bit, and that was before Ole Miss really had a good administrative hand over things. So they'd wander around, and then they'd leave in the same day. But now you've got Square Books, and on the Square, which is a bookend visit to
Right,
Roanoke.
right.
And you've got all those authors that have been through Square Books now. So
Absolutely.
yeah, the William Faulkner started, and the aura that he began is it's so strong,
And
alive and well.
Yeah, you can find. I mean, you can never exhaust it. You cannot exhaust the funny things that he said, the things that he wrote about it. I mean, they just do books and books on just trying to dissect the things that he was talking about in the Southern history and all those things. So it's just
amazing. People always are approaching me about and want to know personal things about Faulkner, but and I asked Dad. Granddad, I didn't, but when I got old enough to realize, and I asked Dad, I said, "What was Faulkner like?" And he said, "Well, he's kind of quiet." He said, but he would talk to you. He said, but this idea that he was a recluse or that he didn't like people, then it just wasn't true.
Right.
He said he didn't like strangers wandering onto his property. Who would?
And that kind of came from the fact that, like I put in my children's book and my poem, Faulkner's Sanctuary, that he didn't really like the bustling big city or all that. He always wanted to come back to Oxford.
He always did.
He wasn't a recluse, but he liked home. He liked Mississippi. He liked that slower pace.
Yeah, he was in California writing one time. You heard that story where they asked him, could he go home and write? And they thought he meant their apartment there in L.A.
Came all the way back home.
He was in Oxford before they knew it.
And they're like, well, where are you? He's like, I'm at home. And it was at Oxford.
Yeah.
And they're in the
people
middle
want
of
to know about Faulkner's personality, and I'm not going to claim to know about him.
Exactly.
I'm not. But I have learned through talking to some folks and finding out about personal experiences, he was a very caring man for the people that were in his life. And there was an old man that worked with him with his horses. I guess I can say he was a black man, and he wasn't educated, but he'd been working with Mr. Faulkner for years. And when Faulkner found out that he was down with asthma, he went to his house and got him out of bed and dressed him himself and took him to the White Hospital or whatever, and even paid the bill. Sat there with him until the doctor saw him and paid the bill. He had compassion for the people around him. He loved them dearly. His dedication to Mammy Callie in the book Go Down Moses was the first time that I knew William Faulkner was a great writer. He's just a very short dedication. But I encourage anybody, go get the book, Go Down Moses, and read William Faulkner's dedication in the front to Mammy Callie Barr, and it is outstanding. You'll be glad you did.
He's something. He is a... If you just start reading his books, a lot of people don't. They can't get through a paragraph that is like 2 pages long because he makes a paragraph that is, like, he just goes on and on and on. And that's where great writers come from, because Eudora Welty said, we don't have to make up anything. We just have the stories. That's why we have so many wonderful Southern writers. You don't have to make up a thing.
He can be hard to read.
He can be for a lot of people. Just go through it, because he is kind of hard because he just keeps on going on and on, because he gives you the background. He puts you in the setting. He wants every little detail of the coat she has on and what.
I think it was the book Mosquitoes that I got mad one night and threw it, and it landed behind my dresser, hit the wall, and slid down behind my dresser, and I had to find it for 15 years later until I moved that dresser, and there it was, because he can be hard to read. But I would also recommend, if anybody wants to start reading Faulkner and you don't know where to start, there's a short story called A Rose for Emily. It's great. It's great. I think it's 30-something pages.
And he always said, I started writing poetry and I found out I wasn't any good at that. That's how I started writing. So anyway, but back to the book. What is the picture on the front of the book and why?
It's funny. We struggled with what we were going to put on the front of the book. We went back and forth, and we looked at some very beautiful modern shots of North Lamar. We have some great photographers in Oxford. But finally, the guy who was helping me lay the book out said, look, skip everything else we talked about. We go find the one photo that goes to the heart of the book. And I thought the Boy Scouts marching the flag around the square was as Oxford as you can get. So that's, and Deborah Freeland is the photographer who took that shot. She is also Oxford artist and very well regarded and a good friend. And she was more than happy to. And
it was just genius to do that, because it kind of gives you a background of the place, kind of, and then the flag, and it gives you the feel, and the Boy Scouts. And for
folks who know Oxford and know the history, Tatula Kakalis is standing right there in the window. Dino's.
Okay, see?
She was the owner, and we knew her. And I was glad. I knew Ole Miss students would all recognize Dino's. and I knew every Oxford person would recognize Sneed's Hardware.
Right. It was genius to put that picture because there's so much in that one little picture. And see, that's what I love about you, because you are a true artist as far as coming from that artistic family of photographers, because you notice every little detail in pictures and shades and what's in the picture.
Well,
because one of my mother's pictures, that's how we really started talking too.
I'll tell you another way I became a writer too. My father used to go shoot out in the backwaters of Sardis. He's looking for driftwood and things, and he shoot. And he said that I was 3 or 4 years old, and I would say, "Daddy, there's a picture," and then he would, at first he wasn't paying, but he turned around and he went, "Oh, there is one." He said, so from that point on, whenever John said, "Daddy, there's a picture," he said, I just turned around and shot.
Okay.
He said, but I got older in my teens, and he said, the thing about it is, John, we're going to find something to use for you to do where you just sit at desk. You're too lazy to be a photographer. You're not going to get up at 6 in the morning and run out there, or be out there at midnight on a full moon. You're not going to do it. So we need to find you somewhere you can sit at a desk. So I ended up being a writer.
And you are good at that, because like I said, we got to talking once, because I put a picture of my mom when she was about 17 or 18, and my dad had given her his, and she had her hands up, and you were like,
I remember her beautiful, delicate hands.
Yeah, exactly. And you wrote me a little note and saying, people don't use, photographers usually don't focus on hands or let them put them in front of them, because people don't have.
Yeah, because hands are something.
Right. Yeah, they're really. Yeah, they put them away. But you was like, wow, hers are really delicate, and
well,
I was like, what, the way you look.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so you definitely have an eye, and then
I look for the detail.
You do, and that's what you look for in these pictures that you put in. It is a gem of a book. Again, tell me how long it took you to kind of compile everything.
I'm going to say from the time I started, and I got kind of tricked in a way. Ed Meek called me one day, and he just said, "Now look, there's a book in you." And by that time, I was writing for HighTide.com at that time.
Yes.
So Ed will work. I'll tell you this right now. Ed Meek will work you to death, but he'll work you in the right direction.
Yes.
He'll keep you between the ditches.
And he loves Ole Miss and Oxford.
He does. And there were several times I sent an article to Ed, and Ed just sent it back and said, "I don't like this. I'm not posting. You do better. You can do better." Threw me out of there. But anyway, Ed pushed me, and it just started from there when he said, "There's a book in you. I know there is." And what he did was my brother had called Ed and said, "Ed, let's get John to do a book." And he said, "I'll try to encourage him, but he won't do it."
Right.
And so Ed called me up and said, "I'm going to help you, and I'll fund it if you need me. I'll do whatever. You can use all my pictures out there. You can have everything free.
Right.
You can do it." And I called my brother, and I was all excited. "I'm going to do a book." Then about 6 months later, Ed and Glenn, I was with them, and they went, "Well, that's kind of a setup. We kind of had to set up something." But as I say, I started collecting. I looked at my dad's pictures, and then the Martin J. Dane, because Archives and Special Collections at Ole Miss kind of had dropped the ball. They were more than willing to let me use anything they had.
Wonderful.
And so they were really good to me that way.
Wonderful.
And so we're taking the Dane collection and the Meek collection, the Coalfield collection, and then all these private collections in town where somebody'd send me a picture of their daddy or their store, their country store. And so I just kept collecting. Finally it was
Wonderful.
there.
Tell us about the Coalfield collection at the University of Mississippi.
Granddad, as I say, came here in 1928. And in 1931, he started doing the Ole Miss annual pictures, and he did them to 1961. And so for 30 years, he was connected with Ole Miss that way. And also, every time anybody came in, like Faulkner wanted a copy negative made of a picture, Granddad made one for himself. So he started building a collection of pictures. And in 1928, when he got to Oxford, he went out right then that year and took a picture of every antebellum home and all the courthouse and everything. He started building his collection then, and then collecting through the years. And he, as they say, he came to Oxford and didn't know a soul in 1928 and operated his business for 45 years.
Isn't that
amazing? And he retired in 1973, and by then, the studio was a museum of Oxford. And so what I'm doing in a way is just using the modern technology of today and continuing what he was doing. But as he retired, as he got close to retirement, he made 2 great big scrapbooks. They're large. And he put in picture after picture, and he did the kind of writing I do. I'll look at writing he did for a picture, and it's almost word for word what I wrote about that picture later on, all these years later, and not having seen what he wrote. And I love that. But no, he came up with the Coalfield collection. That's where the first time you ever heard those 2 words, the Coalfield collection, are the scrapbooks, and they are still at Archives and Special Collections out there, and you can go out there and look. And he's put some cool stuff in there.
That is wonderful.
Typed out the cut lines and glued everything in and taped it all in, and so that's where it started. That was the very, very first Coalfield collection, and I just expanded on it.
Okay. So what was your very first book signing with this, and were you surprised at the reception and
Well,
the people?
yeah, it was going to be at Square Books, and then they decided that it wasn't going to be big enough. They were going to have it.
Right.
But what happened was a lot of old Oxford came out.
Yes. And that's
my
what I'm
friends.
saying. Anybody who loves Oxford, been to Oxford, graduated from Oxford, graduated from Ole Miss, they're going to want that book, because I was seeing it on Facebook. As soon as it came out, they were like, I got to have it, got to have it, got to have it. And
Well, they
you
stuck
really
a
do.
microphone in Richard Howarth's face during the thing, and he said, yeah, this book signing is like a reunion.
It is.
Of old Oxford. And so, it was funny. I didn't, when you're doing a book signing, you think, oh, I'll get to see all these people. You don't have time to talk to anybody. You know how it is.
Right.
You're doing this, and you're looking at this line.
Absolutely.
And you can see people back there going,
Right.
and you're just doing, going as fast as you can, trying to get things done. But so yeah, it took about 2 hours, I guess, to get them all signed. But I was real pleased with it. And as I say, I'm working on book 2 right now.
Yes, that's what I was getting to.
Well, I try to do a
tell
page.
me about
Try to
that.
do a page a day, and people think, what? Is that all you can manage to get done? But first you got to write it.
Exactly.
And you know how it is with us. That can be hard.
Exactly.
Then you've got to find a photograph and get permission to use it, and then you've got to have a high res of that photograph.
Right.
You can't just grab something off Facebook, slap it on a book,
Right.
it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
It would be a complete blur. You know how it goes.
So what's the name of that book going to be, and what is it going to
Just
look
going to be
like?
the Coalfield Collection number 2.
Okay.
Number 2, and
Okay.
it's just going to cover a whole lot. Well, there is one area of the town that I'm going to really enjoy doing, and I'm going to call that chapter the Velvet Ditch. I'm kind of stealing that term away because they describe Oxford as a velvet ditch, saying that once it's easy to fall into and hard to climb out of. But I'm going to do that area where the Hoka and the gin and the warehouse, all that low-lying area that's kind of a ditch, I'm going to call that chapter the Velvet Ditch, and we've just got some great people. There's another little sidebar. People that want, I think Jimmy Buffett's going to do a little writing for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, and the actress Lauren Hutton.
Okay.
Her daddy grew up in Oxford, believe it or not, and he died in his 30s, but her grandmother lived into her 80s.
Okay.
So she spent, for years, she would come back from Hollywood,
Okay.
and I would see her in Oxford. I saw her once with her grandmother's sister was there also, so she had a little old lady on each arm.
Oh,
and
my
they were going
goodness.
into restaurants and stuff. And I've talked to her and got her phone number and called her, and she was riding down the LA freeway in a convertible when I got a hold of her. And the next time I called her, she was in Venice, Italy,
my
at
goodness.
midnight down there, but she told me to call her. But I'm working on getting
There
her.
are so many connections to Oxford that you can
Yeah.
go on. You could have Coalfield 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We're gonna
and 7,
keep going.
And you are, like I said, you are the foremost authority in that. And I was so proud because I put a fact on Facebook one day about somebody a model who was from Oxford, and you were like, I didn't know that. And I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna try and put that in the book. I'm trying to get that in the book because I did not know that she was so famous. I didn't know. I was just amazed. I thought Wikipedia has just messed up. They're wrong. She's not from Oxford. But no, I was really proud to find out she was.
Well,
that's just another example of I may have said it earlier in the interview. I'm just awfully glad to meet you finally. And though we have not met in person, we are friends.
Yes, we
have
are. That's a real
we've communicated
thing.
countless
Yes,
times.
we have.
And liked
all
each other.
the time.
I mean, every day we see each other. So I
And
consider
anytime
us.
that I need a question about Oxford or some person in Oxford, I need to know how to communicate with somebody in Oxford, you are the first one that I go to, and you're like, yeah, I know them.
Well,
I'll send them a letter or send them a note about it or whatever.
So somebody said it to me one day. Said, I said, well, you need to talk to this person about this area of history. Why don't you call this person? They said, you don't understand. You know all these people. I can't call these people.
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah, but I grew up with them.
But we know you, so we don't have to know all
use
those
me
people,
then. Go ahead. I'll be glad to.
Yes, we know you. So it's a wonderful thing. So what is your advice for people who don't really know where they want to start with what they're doing with their talents and to not be discouraged? Just tell them.
It's just really hard because I didn't. Mine came out of my heart. It was back when my first article came when somebody hung a noose on a James Meredith statue, and that bothered me. And so I wrote about every statue that's on campus and why they're there, and the meaning of them. Even went into the L.Q.C. Lamar statue there at his home in Oxford, and went into Johnny Ball and Chucky Mullins there at the stadium. But it just made me write about all. It just hit my heart, And as I said before, sometimes I look at my own writing and go, wow, where did I come up? How did I do that?
Exactly.
Where did I come up with that? My brother does that too. He'll say,
And that was from the heart because it was long. It was just long.
It goes on and on.
Yes. It was so heartfelt.
Yeah, and then
and what's the name of that piece? What was
Lest We Forget?
Yes,
It's called Lest We
yes,
Forget. Yeah.
yes.
And again, I'm not even sure I came with the title, but it came from the heart, and it all came out at one time.
It did.
And if you've got the talent in you to do it, it may be simmering, but it will come out. It'll find a way to come out of you.
And you needed to say it so that other people can say, okay, yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
See, that's what people do with my poems.
Yes.
They're like, I grew up exactly like that. That happened to me. Thank you for putting it out there and putting it in words.
Oh, I love to take my Mississippi and I read it and I put emphasis on different lines as I go. I just kind of a thing I do, but I'll punch one line real hard and then come down. No, I've enjoyed it. I read it 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, so that's what the message I want to give to people who are out there who have a talent or have something out there that they want to give to the world. Give it to the world.
Sure.
You don't worry about how they're going to receive it. That's not up to you. One of the rappers or something said maybe 5 people are going to like it, 50 people, 500, or it may be 5 million or 500 million. That's not up to you. Put that art out there. Put your heart out there. Absolutely, and let the chips fall where they may with whatever.
Well, I can certainly say that I owned a chain of restaurants at one time, and I've been in management and that type thing. But there's no doubt in my mind, this is all I will do for as long as God allows me to live. Every single day, I'll be trying to write another page.
And now you know that that's what you were meant to do. Yeah. It comes back in your face to let you know this is exactly what I was meant to do.
And I mentioned Ed Meek over and over. He really is my mentor, and for him to have been a studio photographer for my grandfather in 1958 when he came to Ole Miss, and then he worked 25 years side by side with Dad in public relations, and so I've got a good mentor, and that's what everybody needs to. And I want to say to you out there who have your hidden talent, when it starts to come out of you, your mentor will find you.
Yes, absolutely.
I think they will. If the right person is to see your stuff, but it happens.
It does.
Because there are people out there like you and I who are going to read a new writer. We're going to look. We're looking for that type of stuff.
And that's what this show is all about, to promote the writers and the talent out there, and to encourage people who, because we have a long literary history in Mississippi, and there's so many different type of authors and artists in Mississippi. There's not just one type of Southern writer.
Richard Howarth, he's almost sad when he talks about it, but he'll talk about the days when Square Books was, Willie Morris was there and alive, and Barry Hannah was alive, and Larry Brown was alive, and they were and John Grisham was living in Oxford, and they were there all the time. You never knew who was going to walk through the door.
Isn't that amazing?
But of course, Square Books, it's rolling now. You got Ace Atkins, and, Beth Ann Finley, and Tom Frank. There's plenty up
and
there.
Oxford is like a literary center of the world, and I don't mean really Mississippi. I mean the world. People come from all over for the conference of the book.
They do.
They come from England. I'm talking about not down, not like Kansas. We're talking about the world.
I wrote a little piece one time about being at Roanoke and hearing people speaking Japanese, French, and German.
Yes.
No, Japanese, French, and I can't remember what the other one. Russian. Because I had to ask them what they were speaking.
Absolutely.
They was Russian. These people had flown in from all of the points of the globe.
Absolutely. It's almost the same as the Elvis phenomenon. It's just like you come to Tupelo and people all day, every day are coming to from all over the globe to see Elvis. Same thing with Faulkner and Oxford. People come from everywhere.
We talk about this too. You throw B.B. King in there and you look at these counties in North Mississippi and the talent they produce.
That's what I tell people.
God.
How do y'all talk about Mississippi and put us down? Because if it wasn't for our artists and authors, you wouldn't have anything.
Well, B.B. King was the king of his form of entertainment. Elvis was the king of rock and roll. B.B. King is the king of the book. William Faulkner's a Nobel laureate.
The top of everything, If they took, that would be like just a black hole, a vacuum. If they took out all the Mississippi musicians,
oh my God,
because it's just crazy.
Music and writing would suffer greatly.
Because I tell people that Mississippi has more Grammy Award winners than any other state in the whole,
I love that.
And then we have more than all of the top 5. This one state has more Grammys than all of the top 5 on the list.
That is fantastic.
It is. It's amazing.
And to be the small state we are.
And I love this. And thank you so much for promoting a positive Mississippi through doing Oxford and letting us know the wealth and the value in Oxford. And tell us about your page, Forever Ole Miss. I think I started kind of knowing you through that page without even knowing your name.
Well, that was, Ed got mad at me for over Forever Ole Miss. He and I together started If You Love Oxford and Ole Miss.
Right,
which was the page set up in advance of hottytoddy.com
right,
coming
exactly.
on. But then I wanted to post I just had a feeling for these great Ole Miss pictures too that my father and grandfather had and everything, and I wanted to post them myself on a separate page.
Yes.
So I didn't tell Ed that Forever Ole Miss was me for the longest time, and then he found out, and he had a fit, but then he got over it.
Right, because I mean, you don't know who it is. It's just like you just post out. I said, who is this that knows everything?
Articles on there all the time.
Yeah, right.
I put your logo up there.
Everything. So if you want to know anything about Oxford, Ole Miss, and you need to go to Forever Ole Miss.
Forever Ole Miss is fun.
It is.
It's a combination of Ole Miss sports and then old black and white pictures from back in the day, and then Mississippi State jokes, and it's just a good mix.
Everything. I love
There's a good mix of things in there to try to keep it. I wanted to, and the same thing goes with this book. If you keep doing the same thing over and over, people just get bored with it. In this book here, the same thing with the page. I didn't want to just put all black and white pictures because I've gone through all black and white picture books before, and I don't care what the subject matter is. After about 50 pages, it's just another black and white picture, So we mixed in a lot of good current stuff in there.
Absolutely, I love that.
And my layout design person mentioned that we want things like say a business logo or anything different from a picture. And so we put some black and whites and we put the colors in there too.
Pictures, I mean, just everything. Okay, this is like on the square during the Civil War. Like
those were Confederate prisoners staying in these tents and up here. And they said the ones that were up here, they ran out of food, and the ones that were up here were starving, begging, and the children would come up and they would drop a string and send food up to them so they'd live. But anyway, the Yankees were in charge of the courthouse at that point.
Isn't that
and
amazing?
Then they burned this courthouse down too late. This was 1862. And in 1864, General Whiskey Smith came through. Is after Oxford had supported Nathan Bedford Forrest raids on Holly Springs. And
who do you know that knows all those kind of little tidbits about it? I mean, please, I'm telling you, it's in this book and it's in this man's mind.
But that's what had happened, and they came back and burned down. They burned the square, they burned all the businesses, the courthouse, the train depot, and then they burned I think 4 or 5, maybe 6 houses of prominent citizens. But they were all Civil War backers and people who had funded units for the South and stuff, and so they were getting them back. I mean, it was war.
And what is this? What is this picture?
This is this courthouse now, and now it doesn't have the big wings on it that you see if you drive to Oxford today. But this is the new courthouse. This was burned in 1864. This one was built in 1872, 8 years later. And they rebuilt the depot.
And this one is in 1872, this picture.
That's when it was built. And they believe that's 1872. And this group of men is believed to be jurors who were out on break.
Okay, wow. So you can see all this stuff. And this place right here, where was this located in? Where is it? Yeah.
This is the Thompson house on the square. And everybody knows.
You know that.
Jacob Thompson's family was one of those Confederate families whose home was burned. But they didn't, he built this about 5 years after the square was burned. We didn't have a hotel. So Thompsons came and built the Thompson house. Hotel.
And see all the people and that's
and it's
amazing.
funny, this picture has 2 different lives and we don't know which one. Some people say it's a parade. My grandfather says that it's the hanging of Will Mathis, and he's supposed to be sitting here on the coffin in the thing. And there was Will Mathis worked for a white man, and he, the white man was hung too. They were both convicted of murder, I think, of 2 brothers. But still later on, I think records were unsure whether they did it or not. But anyway, they were both hung. And it's maybe the last hanging in Oxford.
But see, that's the thing about these pictures. There is so much history in all of these. If you all look at these pictures, I'm telling you, you could spend a day on 1 or 2 pages in this whole thing.
Took this shot in the snow.
1935.
He wrote there on the negative.
The big snow. January 22nd, 1935.
And that's the Thompson house again.
Exactly.
Looking straight down North
and anybody who's been in Oxford will know these places immediately. They'll know.
And I'll tell you, and I bring this up, I'm not trying to be self-serving, but there's a compliment that I've gotten about a dozen times that I never expected, and it's all the same way. It says that mother or father has Alzheimer's, and we hadn't been able to communicate with her. She hadn't known us for a year, and we set this book in her lap. And suddenly, we had Mama back for a few hours. She knew people and she knew places. She started telling stories about this building, and one of them said, my brother and sister and I were just standing there crying. We had Mama back.
It's a connection
for just a little while.
For
we
generations.
Had Mama back.
This book
but said when she put the book down, she got lost again. Yeah, she was lost again.
Okay, give us that website, the Coalfield.
Yeah, CoalfieldPress.com. It's CoFieldPress.com.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming, my friend.
Thank you,
It's so great to see you. And Again, thank you all for tuning in for another segment of Meet My Mississippi authors and artists. And we're going to have some amazing people on here. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Girl, it's in the air. It's who I am through and through. It won't take long till it gets to you. It's everywhere. Mississippi magic is sweet molasses breeze. God come